Yusuke Urameshi is a rebellious teenager who doesn't mind getting into trouble to defend the causes he believes in. When he sees a group of bullies attacking a young man at his school, Yusuke decides to take action, but it backfires when the principal believes he is stealing his classmates' money. Even after being scolded, the young man doesn't even try to explain himself and just leaves without giving any kind of satisfaction. When he arrives in his neighborhood, Yusuke is surrounded by Kuwabara, who goes after him in search of revenge for the beating he took the day before. However, his plan doesn't work out as expected and Kuwabara ends up being beaten once again. He refuses to receive help from his henchmen because he wants to defeat his opponent alone and dreams of being able to beat him one day. Furious about what happened at school, Yusuke takes the opportunity to take all his anger out on the man and leaves when he realizes that his opponent can barely stand up. A few kilometers away, while waiting for traffic to move, a truck driver is attacked by a flying insect-like creature that invades his body and begins to control him, causing a serious accident. At lunchtime, Yusuke decides to eat at his parents' restaurant with Keiko, his childhood best friend, who is furious about the mess the young man caused at school earlier, and is calmly walking down the street when the truck drives into his neighborhood. The vehicle is about to run over a little boy, but Yusuke runs to save him and ends up being hit. At that moment, the young man's soul leaves his body and he discovers that he is dead. While the paramedics are taking him to hospital, Botan, a guide from the spirit world, appears and Yusuke refuses to accompany her. However, after checking that Masaru, the boy he saved, is okay, the young man asks Botan to take him to hell right away. When she hears this, she explains that the young man's death was not expected in the spirit world and that there is therefore no place for him in either heaven or hell. So Botan decides to take him to the spirit world and, after crossing a great river, they meet Koenma, who is responsible for separating the souls that go to heaven from the souls that go to hell. The man then informs him that he will resurrect Yusuke and, in exchange, the young man will become a supernatural detective. From now on, his job will be to solve cases involving yokai in the world of men. There's a yokai called the Hellbug who escaped from the world of demons and made it to Earth. So Yusuke's first mission will be to find out how he managed to do this and report all his findings to the spirit world. Even though he knows this is an excellent offer, Yusuke decides to turn down the job because he doesn't want to be controlled by anyone. However, when the day of his wake arrives and he has the opportunity to see countless people, including Kuwabara, deeply mourning his death, the young man changes his mind. That night, the same group of school bullies attack Karino again. At that moment, the insect from the demon world invades his body and he begins to fight back. During the battle, Karino knocks over a motorcycle and the fuel tank starts leaking, causing a huge explosion. Hearing the noise, Kuwabara rushes over to find out what happened and finds Karino completely possessed. Before being resurrected, Yusuke receives a message from Koenma and discovers that his home is in danger thanks to a human who has been possessed. The flames created by the explosion spread and Yusuke's house started on fire. Discovering that her friend's body is still inside, Keiko rushes to rescue him and ends up trapped. At that moment, Yusuke asks Koenma to resurrect him and promises that, in exchange, he will become a supernatural detective. When he wakes up, Yusuke saves Keiko and takes her into his mother's arms. He then goes after Karino, who is currently fighting Kuwabara and his gang. After knocking the young man out, Yusuke discovers that he has to remove the insect from his body, otherwise Karino will turn into a yokai. The problem is that in order to remove the creature, you need to use spiritual energy and Yusuke doesn't know how to do that. His main concern at the moment is not to get hit by Karino, because if he does, he'll be killed again. So Yusuke decides to use some string to tie the monster up, and then beats it to a pulp. However, it isn't long before Karino manages to break free and punctures a gas cylinder, which, when it comes into contact with the fire, causes another explosion. Immediately, Yusuke uses a metal bar to defend himself and is thrown far away. Seeing Karino walking towards him, the young man uses a bicycle to trap him against the wall and tries to help his schoolmate resist the demon's influence. When he hears the young man begging for help, Yusuke manages to use some of his spiritual energy to remove the insect from his body and crushes it with his bare hands. After taking Karino to hospital, Yusuke returns home and Keiko and his mother run to hug him. That same night, a bloody war between demons takes place and a swordsman named Hiei enters the battle. Kurama then appears to help him and uses his whip to eliminate the creatures. Finally, Goki arrives on the scene and helps his companions steal 3 incredibly powerful treasures from the spirit world. When he finds out what has happened, Koenma informs Yusuke of his next mission and then begins to train him so that the young man becomes capable of defeating these yokais. His first task is to learn how to perform a technique called Ligan, which consists of concentrating a large amount of spiritual energy in his index finger and firing it. However, Yusuke is unsuccessful in his training. Through his mirror, Koenma discovers that Goki has used the Gaki ball he stole from the spirit world to imprison the souls of a group of children. So Yusuke must find him before the yokai devours them. However, even after walking all over the city, Botan cannot detect Goki's demonic energy and begins to suspect that he has managed to hide it. That afternoon, Yusuke is walking near a playground when he sees some children fainting and begins to follow the man who is passing by with a sphere in his hand. When he realizes he's being followed, Goki runs away and lures Yusuke to an abandoned car depot. When he gets there, the yokai lunges at the young man and tries to knock him out, but Yusuke uses all his skill to get rid of those blows and attacks the monster. The problem is that his punches and kicks have no effect on the demon and Goki throws him from side to side with ease, as he is much bigger than him. While hiding, Yusuke tries to activate the Ligan, but is unable to fire it. So Goki manages to capture him and is about to eliminate the young man when Masaru appears and orders the giant to release his friend. Just then, the boy's soul is sucked into the sphere and the yokai is preparing to devour it when Yusuke jumps on his neck and manages to fire his first shot of energy. After being defeated, the souls of the children Goki stole managed to escape and return to their respective bodies. A few meters away, Kurama was watching Yusuke, but decided not to interfere in the fight. The next morning, while Yusuke and Botan are walking through the neighborhood, they end up being spotted by Kuwabara and the young man decides to follow them. During the conversation with his spirit guide, the detective discovers that the mirror of darkness that is with Kurama is capable of fulfilling any wish, even evil ones, but it can only act on nights with a full moon. After giving his messages, Botan disappears and Kuwabara becomes intrigued. Hours later, while walking down the street, Yusuke meets Kurama and decides to follow him. To his surprise, the demon enters the town hospital and discovers that he has gone there to visit his mother, who is very ill. Kurama then reveals that as soon as he accomplishes his goal, he will return the mirror and Yusuke is surprised to discover that not all yokais are evil. That woman raised Kurama for as long as he lived in the human world. As an act of gratitude, the demon intends to use the mirror of darkness to help her recover. At that moment, Kuwabara is hiding behind a bush and hears the whole conversation. It's the night of the full moon and Botan reveals that by using the mirror of darkness, one pays the price of the request with one's life. Upon discovering this, Yusuke goes after Kurama to stop him and is followed by Kuwabara, who reveals that he knows about the existence of the yokais. At that moment, Kurama has just made his request and wishes his mother a happy life in exchange for his own. When he arrives at the hospital, Yusuke decides to enter the energy portal to save Kurama and offers half his life so that the demon can continue to live. Seconds later, they both return to the human world, now with half the life they had. Seeing his mother healthy, Kurama is relieved and Kuwabara comes to the conclusion that not all yokais are bad. While the two friends are out eating ramen together, Hiei uses his third eye to steal a teardrop stone and Tarukane is furious to discover that his valuable merchandise has been taken by a yokai. These stones are extremely rare, as they can only be obtained through Yukina's tears. So Sakio orders Tarukane to take the girl to his residence and promises to make her cry. After being given the mission to recover the Kuma sword, Yusuke is about to infiltrate a mansion. According to Koenma, the Kuma sword grants its bearer any ability he wishes, so Yusuke needs to be very careful as he doesn't know what powers Hiei possesses at the moment. When he meets the yokai, the young man tries to attack him, but Hiei manages to dodge all his blows and doesn't even need to use his katana against Yusuke, as he knows the human has no chance against him. Months while Yusuke is shamefully defeated, Tarukane arrives at Sakio's mansion and discovers that the D-man has set up an arena for yokais to fight each other. With only 30% of his strength, Toguro eliminates a demon with a single punch, breaking its body in half. Sakio wants to get Yukina into the ring with one of his freaks. However, when Tarukane's henchmen go to arrest the young woman in the cell, the businessman realizes that she has managed to escape. The truth is that one of the employees decided to help her escape, but ended up being unmasked by Elder, who was hiding in the helicopter waiting for him. The short man uses his long fingers to eliminate the man and then Yukina is captured again. After getting numerous tear stones for Tarukane, Sakio sends a gang of yokais to get rid of Yusuke and Hiei in order to ensure that the businessman returns home safely. The next morning, Botan reveals that from now on Yusuke will have a martial arts mentor to teach him how to use his spiritual energy. Just then, Kuwabara appears and says that he will also take part in the training. So they are both taken to the temple of Genkei and the old woman challenges Yusuke to a duel. Immediately, the young man lunges at her, but doesn't even manage to touch her. After dodging the young man's inaccurate blows, Genkei knocks him down with a kick and, soon after, Yusuke manages to copy her technique. However, at the end of the battle, he is completely defeated and goes to check on his friend's performance. Kuwabara's training consists of breaking a huge rock with a wooden sword, but Yusuke believes that this is an impossible mission. While they are training in the mountains, Sakyo begins his plan to open a hole that will connect the world of men to the world of demons and enlists the help of Toguro to carry out this mission. Unlike Yusuke, Kuwabara has above-average determination and continues to try to destroy the rock, even though he knows that the chances of him succeeding are slim. Ever since he arrived in that place, the young man has made every effort to become stronger and he beats that rock until his hands bleed. After countless attempts, he destroys dozens of swords and grabs the last remaining piece of wood. Then, by striking the rock, Kuwabara finally manages to cut it in half with the lightsaber he created with his spiritual energy. Seeing his friend progressing in his training, Yusuke refuses to be left behind and decides to dedicate himself as much as he does. When Genkei meets him, to his surprise, he realizes that the young man is learning to control his energy and says that he can move on to the next level. Now, Yusuke needs to learn how to use this energy to his advantage, and everyone is impressed when the young man makes his first shot. That ray of energy crossing the sky draws Toguro's attention and Genkei senses the presence of the approaching enemy. She immediately goes to talk to Yusuke and gives him the spirit ball, which is the secret of Lycoden. The young man promises that he will use this power to protect his friends. She then asks the young men to go down the mountain and tells them that their training has come to an end. That night, during a storm, Genkei receives her long-awaited visit and has to fight the man she met 50 years ago. Meanwhile, Yusuke is having dinner at Kiko's parents' restaurant. After eating his delicious noodles, he says goodbye to his friend and realizes that Keiko has been captured by the swordsman. Furious, the young man goes after Hiei and starts a battle against him. However, the truth is that it wasn't him who captured the girl, but Elder, who disguised himself to cause intrigue between Yusuke and the swordsman. This time, when he fights Hiei, the young man isn't at a disadvantage and manages to duel him on equal terms. The battle only comes to an end when Kurama appears and says that there has been a misunderstanding. The yokai then reveals that the man who captured Keiko is the same one who is with Yukina, Hiei's sister, and the two rivals will have to team up if they want to rescue them. Since he owes Yusuke, Kurama decides to accompany them and Kuwabara shows up to help his friend save Keiko. Suddenly, a messenger sent by Sakyo appears and reveals that he has been waiting for them. Under orders from his boss, the man offers to take them to the Island of Darkness. During the boat trip, the official assures them that Keiko and Yukina will be released as soon as the quartet manages to defeat all the yokais who work for Sakyo. At this point, Yusuke and Kuwabara still don't know about Master Genkei's death and Koenma tells them that they should only receive the news after completing their mission. When they reach the island, Hiei decides to continue his journey alone and abandons his allies. Upon entering the warehouse, they are greeted by Karasu and Kurama asks his friends to continue while he faces the demon. During the search for his sister, Hiei also encounters an adversary and has to face a yokai warrior who tries to hit him with his giant axe. While the duels take place, Tarukane and the other billionaire Sakyo has invited to his island place their bets on who they believe will win each fight. At that moment, Kurama tries to dodge the fireballs thrown by his opponent and attacks him with his whip. But what Karasu really wants is for his opponent to assume his true demon form. Then, after almost being blown up by the dozens of bombs thrown by his opponent, Kurama decides to transform and his speed increases instantly. The yokai, in its true form, is able to make carnivorous plants sprout from the ground and reveals that they attack anything that moves. However, when Kurama finally manages to capture Karasu, his supernatural energy runs out and he returns to his human form. In the mansion's dungeon, Hiei continues his battle against Bui and manages to hit him with his sword, but the demon's armor prevents him from being seriously injured. However, to defeat Hiei, the warrior needs to remove his armor so that he can move freely and increase his speed. In this way, he is able to pull out Hiei's sword and strike him. After almost losing the fight, the swordsman decides to use his supreme blow to defeat his opponent and removes the band around his arm. Just then, black smoke in the shape of a dragon covers his body and engulfs Bui, leaving his body completely burnt. Unaware that her friends have gone to the island to free her, Keiko decides to act and pretends to be ill in order to convince a guard to open her cell. In doing so, the man is attacked and ends up fainting. After freeing herself, Keiko opens Yukina's cell and they team up to escape the place. Meanwhile, Yusuke and Kuwabara continue to run around the mansion looking for Keiko and decide to split up to cover a larger area. Minutes later, Kuwabara meets Keiko and falls completely in love with Yukina, so he says he went there to save her. At this point, Kurama continues to be taken by surprise by the explosions caused by his opponent, but he still has a secret weapon. During the battle, Karasu's hand was pierced by one of his roses and he now has the seed of death in his body. At this point, the roots have grown so much that they begin to tear through the demon's body and destroy its heart. After the death of Karasu and Bui, Sakio says that the main attraction will begin soon. While walking through the dungeon, Kuwabara and the girls try to find their way out, but end up releasing a demonic beast that starts chasing them. While trying to find a way to escape, the trio must distract the creature and Kuwabara fights the monster while Keiko activates the security locks, causing all the doors to lock automatically. Seeing the door closing, the young man runs and manages to cross in time to a safe zone, leaving the demon trapped alone on the other side. Just when he thinks he has gotten rid of all the yokais, Elder appears in front of him and is attacked with an iron bar. However, his body is able to regenerate from any blow. After running all over the mansion, Yusuke arrives at the arena and Sakio informs him that his friend, Keiko, will only be released if he manages to defeat Toguro. Now that he's facing his opponent, Toguro says he won't hold back and attacks Yusuke brutally. After taking several kicks, the young man manages to shake off a powerful punch from his opponent, capable of destroying the arena floor. As a result of this blow, one of the lampposts is knocked down and invades the cabin where the billionaires are staying. After this scare, Tarukane and the others decide to leave, but the fight continues. Seeing her friend in danger, Keiko decides to throw an object to get Elder's attention and ends up becoming a target. However, just as the little guy was about to strike the girl with his claws, Kuwabara managed to access his lightsaber and cut the yokai's body into pieces. However, the creature once again manages to regenerate and pierces its opponent's shoulder. Noticing the large number of demons pouring out of the portal, Koenma produces an energy shield around the island of darkness to stop them from spreading, but if the hole keeps growing, the shield won't hold for long. So he goes to visit Sakio to try to understand what his goal is. The man then explains that he wants to return the planet to what it was before Koenma separated the two worlds. In the arena, Yusuke is about to be hit by a metal grating when Hiei appears and uses his sword to cut it in half. Kurama then arrives and joins them in the battle. Seeing the trio, Sakio suggests a bet and says that if the youngsters win, he will close the hole. On the other hand, if Toguro wins, Koenma will have to undo the barrier he created to separate the two worlds. However, Koenma has no guarantee that Sakio won't try to dig another hole, so the man decides to bet his life on it. The three fighters then team up to defeat their opponent, but Toguro manages to take them down and is about to eliminate Yusuke when Kurama and Hiei team up to immobilize him. At that moment, the young man manages to free himself and uses a blast of energy to push his enemy's body against a pointed metal stake. After having his chest pierced, Toguro is attacked with a blast of energy whose power is capable of destroying the arena wall. However, not even Yusuke's most powerful blow was able to defeat him and Toguro returns to the arena with his wound already healed. When she arrives at the ring in the company of Kuwabara and Yukina, Keiko sees her best friend on the ground and runs to help him. However, Elder stops her and starts laughing at the losers, saying that Genkei died in vain to protect them. The little guy says that Toguro met the old lady when they were still young and the pair trained in martial arts together. However, time passed and Genkei grew old, but Toguro became a yokai and thus managed to preserve his youth. A few decades later, the two faced off again in a final duel and Genkei was defeated by Toguro, who eliminated her without any remorse. After telling this story, Elder suffers an unexpected attack from his own brother, who knocks him out with a single punch. Upon discovering that his sensei has been eliminated, Kuwabara is furious and attacks Toguro with his sword, but the giant easily blocks the blow and knocks the young man down. When his friend is about to be crushed, Yusuke gets up and uses the power of the spirit sphere he received from Genkei to strike his enemy. Furious, he punches Toguro repeatedly and buries the man in the ground. However, when he returns to the surface, the demon's body is 10 times its original size. Even the pressure coming off his fingers can be used as a weapon and Kuwabara is easily defeated. Now that he is in his most powerful form, the demon is unaffected by Yusuke's attacks and Toguro tries to make the young man feel the same pain he felt the day he turned into a yokai. Seeing all his disciples being devoured by a demon ignited a hidden potential in Toguro's body and he wants to bring about the same transformation in Yusuke, because only then will he have an opponent to match. Then the giant decides to eliminate the girls, but Yusuke and the others try to stop him and are easily repelled. Even though he knows he can't defeat that monster, Kuwabara risks his life to try to protect Keiko and Yukina and ends up having his abdomen destroyed. Seeing his greatest rival and friend being eliminated, Yusuke stands up and uses all his fury to defeat Toguro. His spiritual energy is greater than ever, so he prepares to make one last shot, where he puts all his power into it. At that moment, Yusuke manages to throw the most powerful Legan in history and Toguro uses his muscles to block the energy sphere. Gradually, his body begins to turn to stone and the demon thanks Yusuke for allowing him to use his full power for the first time before he dies. After winning the battle, Yusuke discovers that Kuwabara is still alive and Yukina manages to heal him with her power. Now that his sister is safe, Hiei gives the Kuma sword to Kurama and Sakio must fulfill his promise by taking all the demons he freed back to his world. He then pays the last part of his bet and uses a revolver to take his own life. When they are about to leave the island, Yukina reveals that she is looking for her lost brother, despite never having met him, and is extremely happy when she discovers that Hiei is the person she has been looking for so long.